morning to all the panelists, and we are looking forward to the sessions today. This is actually a very important session because we all know that this theme is enhancing value addition and strengthening the base of the pyramid. This remains to be a big challenge, for India, and I think we have not overcome this challenge yet. So this is something which is going on, and a discussion on this would be extremely valuable, and maybe some new thoughts and new ideas would come. So this is the foundation without which we all cannot succeed in building a strong ESG industry. So we are looking forward to a discussion on PCBs, on passive active components, electromechanical components, also the and equally important, the design and development aspect, which I guess is what really fuels, the R&D, etc. Uh, so I would just, like to welcome all of you very briefly with a very brief synopsis of the profiles. Uh, I welcome Mr. Pankaj Gulati. I'll wait for Mr. Sharma to join. Uh, Pankaj Gulati, our immediate past president and executive vice president and COO of CDIL, who is a well-known expert today in semiconductor technology and manufacturing. Mr. Gulati has over 35 years experience and international exposure in wafer fabrication as well as ATMP of semiconductors. Valuable resource for our industry. I welcome Mr. Gulati.
Thank you, Rajaji. Thank you. Morning, everybody.
Welcome, sir. Mr. Sunil Banwari, Managing Director and COO of ATMS India Private Limited, has over 30 years of experience in international leadership positions, of which 20 years is in USA and 10 years in Asia, in semiconductor and electronics manufacturing. ATMS today, under his leadership, leads in the PCB manufacturing in India, and Mr. Banwari is leading from the front in growing this vital sector of our industry. Welcome, Sunilji, to the forum.
Thank you.
Dr. Sriram Srinivasan. Sriramji, most welcome on the forum. Thank you very much for joining. Mr. Sriram is the CEO of Syrma Technology, a company which leads in design and EMS. Works in a number of emerging technologies. He is a BTech from IIT Madras and MS and PhD from North Carolina State University. Under Dr. Sriram's leadership, Syrma has grown at a CAGR of 40% over the last 4 years, which is really remarkable. Dr. Sriram has wide experience in automotive, mechanical, and electronics technology and is a business leader with strong applications, experience in marketing, product development, quality, and manufacturing experience over the last 35 years. A very warm welcome, Sriramji. Mr. Sajan David. Thank you, sir, for joining the forum. Mr. David is Vice President and Business Head of Amara Raja Electronics, the Mechanical Engineering MBA, and has over 26 years of experience in leading manufacturing organizations in India. He has worked for some of the top electronics companies, including FCI OEM, Solectron, and SFO Technologies. A very warm welcome to you, Sajanji. Last but not the least, leading from the front in the design and development arena in this country is Mr. Bhupinder Saharan. Very warm welcome to you, Bhupinder ji. Bhupinder is the CEO of VVDN Technologies, which leads in design-led manufacturing. Mr. Saharan has over 20 years experience in mid-large organizations and now leads VVDN, providing a wide spectrum of embedded design services and ODM capabilities for the auto, industrial, networking, wireless technology, IoT, etc. We believe that VVDN today is a star on the horizon of design-led manufacturing services, providing great value for the ESDM industry. We now have Mr. Vinod Sharma on the conference just in time.
No, my apologies, I'm late.
I welcome Mr. Vinod Sharma, the Managing Director of Deki Electronics, a well-known company manufacturing world-class capacitors. I think all of us know Mr. Vinod Sharma very well. He's a very active person in the industry. He's been the past president of Bensina and he wears many hats. As chairman of CII ICT committee, he has been the chairman of ESC, and also leads policy advocacy with great passion. He has won many awards and recognitions and uses his skills as a trainer and as an expert as well. Before few words, I would like to welcome all of you on board. Vinodji, I have already introduced and welcomed our other speakers, and I will quickly hand over to you to do the value add on this session, please. Thank you very much. Over to Vinodji.
Thanks very much, Raju. And once again, my sincere apologies. Something went wrong in the morning. But anyway, here we are. Wonderful panel of speakers. Almost all of them are friends of mine, so I know some of them more intimately than the others. So in some cases, I can reveal some secrets, and some others I'll have to stay strictly professional. But what we want to do this morning and the next hour or so is probably dig a little deep and say. So the first few thoughts that come to my mind, I think what we are trying to do something is what happens in many other countries very naturally. If you are in a part of the Japanese supply chain, it is quite normal that their first preference for no other reason, but would be to buy a Japanese component, would be to try to talk to a Japanese design company and keep it within that nationality parameter as far as the Koreans are the same, the Chinese are doing the same, as we know very well. Only in India, when this happens, we have to call this Atmanirbhar Bharat, vocal for local. Nobody, of a lesser stature than our own honorable Prime Minister has to urge us to do something which I think is extremely natural. That's the first point I'd like to put before you, and I'd like your comments when it comes to yours, when I come to you. The second, I don't think we have done, and again, I'm making some provocative statements right in the morning, but the second thing I keep trying to challenge my colleagues in the purchase department of the several customers that even I serve. And I said, please do an honest Excel sheet calculation of how much does a local component cost you as the landed cost, vis-a-vis what it is when you import it from some other country. And they tell me, of course, we know that this is our job and we've been doing it for a long time. And why I use the word challenges, because I think there's a lot of knowledge there that we need to sort of, either they know it and they don't let their own vendors know about it, or in some cases, may I say, that they generally are making a mistake. The moment you begin to add the costs of obsolescence of inventories, and anybody who thinks that he has no obsolete inventory, any EMS company, any product company, please go for your slow-moving and your non-moving inventory list, and you'll be shocked with the amount of money that is lying blocked there, which probably will never see the light of the day. It will be locked in your storehouses. Look at the dollar fluctuations, and any company that tells me that, oh, hedging is a piece of cake, except for companies that are naturally hedged by exports, I can understand. Everybody else is really open to this exposure, and sometimes that can cost you a lot of money. Third most important thing, and even more important than these two, is that I think when we are trying to create something of value for your end customers, our linkages with our supply chain are an extremely important part of what we are trying to do. What I mean by that is designing in, exactly as my customers have been trying to build a television or a cell phone or a set-top box for the last 30 years, your companies and mine have been trying to build our components also for almost 30 years each. Which basically means that for 30 years, we are trying to improve the very capacitor my company makes to make it better, cheaper, more reliable, smaller. And if we don't have a good conversation with each other, I think it is you as my customers who's missing out on all the knowledge that my team may have developed during these 30 years. Now, this knowledge may be a little lesser than my counterpart somewhere else in the world. Sometimes that's possible. But that someone else in the world is not having that conversation with you, because the only conversation you have with him largely is price or payment terms. You're not having a technical discussion. You're not saying, hey, this is what I want to achieve. Can you help me? Can we increase the voltages? Can we do something about the humidity conditions? Can I make it more reliable? And I think there is a lot of scope for us to talk to each other and build value into what we are trying to bring to our customers. Finally, I would only leave you with the fourth thought that is on my mind, which is when I question myself and say, so, hey, we've been in business for 30 years now, and most of you I see on the screen have had that kind of experience or even more, definitely richer than my experience. But if I ask myself, so what is my role in society? What is the very purpose of my existence? And I'm now getting into a very existential question. As a CEO or as an entrepreneur or somebody who's trying to run a business, we all know that we're doing it for profits. But may I say that in the transitionary phase that our country is in today and will remain for the next 20 years, one of our very key roles is to convert capital into jobs. So there is some capital available with my shareholders, with my family, with my friends, maybe out there in the stock market or as debt with the banks. I need to use that capital in the most effective way, in the most efficient way, to be able to create the maximum number of jobs I can. Now, I know that again is something which is debatable and probably provocative, because you might say that's not my job. I can do things through Industry 4.0. I can cut down on people. I need to automate more. And my answer to that is absolutely. Do whatever is required to make our own businesses as efficient as possible. But while doing that, if we make a bigger business, if we only, I always tell my own team that if we are India's largest film capacitor manufacturer, but what stops us from becoming the world's largest? And I think it is all between the 2 years that this whole challenge lies. We are slowly getting to the point that we are competitive with China thanks to our customers in India. I must not paint only a completely gloomy picture about how the customers look at us. I think the customers have played an extremely important role because they are the smartest guys around. Technically, they will get you the best specs, they will demand the best price out of you, and then they will demand the best delivery conditions, inventory issues, and business environment, your ISO 9000s and 14000s and OSAS. And the good thing about India is because they're smart, these customers, they're able to get the best technological benchmarks out of Japan or Germany. As I always say, the best price benchmarks out of China, and the best payment term benchmarks out of India, and combine all that and put you into a pressure cooker. So I want to begin the day by also thanking all our customers for having got us to this position, that in spite of a zero duty, all the people you see on screen have done extremely well and deserve, I think, an applause just to be on, to have survived and to have got here. With those opening remarks, the idea is I wanted to set just the tone of the discussion, but more importantly, tell you, let's have a candid discussion. We are not making a political posturing. I don't want to be absolutely correct and polite to everybody. I want to tell ourselves that, quite frankly, if the way we have looked at business for the last 30 years is the way we will look at it for the next 5 years, I think only God can help us in that case. We will lose a massive opportunity. The anti-China rhetoric, the China plus one supply chain opportunity that we see, or as somebody else said the other day from Taiwan, very interestingly, a supply chain that's called ABC, anywhere but China. So with these few words, let me open the house and say, can we get maybe 3, 4, 5, max 5 minutes of comments and how you think about it? I'll go in the order that I see on my screen, and then maybe I will have a few questions, and I will also look at the questions that the audience has. Why don't I get one very aggressive company, and I say aggressive in a very positive way, who's trying to change the whole landscape of the EMS, the design ODM business in this country. Bhupendra Sharanji, Bhupi as I like to call him. Over to you, Bhupi. I know you always have some very interesting things to say, so I'm looking forward to your address. You're on mute, Bhupi. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. So very excited to be with all of you, and I think what you said, just now, I will give my perception here. So today, the opportunity what India is standing is where after the COVID or during the COVID, everything has gone to zero. So from zero, who will scale further? We think India has the biggest opportunity right now. And all the people who are sitting on the panel, I think each one is at a very executive position in their companies, and we may have another 50 such more people in country. This 55 people or 60 people have to play a big role in this, basically. So what I think is the opportunity for the manufacturing, opportunity for the design is super strong right now for India. I think the political wish is there, that yes, India need to grow very well into the electronics manufacturing, design and manufacturing right now. 5G is playing a super strong role. So 5G, when whole the world is political about 5G, I think this is the great opportunity for 5G, I will say. So what we are seeing right now, because earlier most of VVDN customers were in North America, and now most of those customers are moved out of the China right now. Did they come to India? I will say only 5% has come to India. 95% went to Vietnam or some other country. I mean, there may be multiple issues in the past. The way the country, our country has run if you live last 5 years, before that 30, 40 years. I mean, we have messed up everything. From last 5 years, at least the enthusiasm has built a lot, basically. But there is a lot more customer who want to move out of the China. Lot more customer who want to. I get without doing any sale, I get an inquiry at info@vvdntech.com. Hey, we are making a router in China. We want to start. Can you guys make us for in India right now? This kind of inquiries are coming basically without doing any sale right now. It means as a country we are sitting on a gold mine right now. We have so many hands. We have so big capacity basically. I think the venture capitalists are ready to put a lot of money in India right now. I mean, one great example, I think Dixon guys are not here, but if you see, the Dixon is a good example which they have set. And all of us are following basically in our own field actually. So this opportunity, I will say, to create any number of job. We are talking about 1 crore job. We are talking about 2 crore job. How many you can talk? Because electronics manufacturing is huge, basically. So that opportunity stay very very strong is sitting in front of us. Basically, we just have to grab it. I am putting whatever I have earned throughout my life. I am putting everything on stake for this opportunity right now. So we are next 3 years. What I am saying is, VVDN alone, we will be able to. Right now, we have around 6,000 employees, but I think we will be able to do around 1 lakh employees in next 3 years. Maybe EBITDA will be somewhere 5%, 8%, 10%, 15% based on the opportunity. But without doing any sale, people are coming to you. It means India has a lot of potential right now, basically. And all these people who are on the call, and another 55 people, another 60 people, only 60 more companies are like this. We have to lead the effort. I think there shall be no government excuse. This government is not doing this, that, and all that. See, excuse will continue throughout our life. We are never happy with any government anyway. But this government is better than what we used to be, basically. Without without doing all those things, we all need to put a strong effort. I am in the game, basically. I am putting everything what VVDN has earned, and we have got a lot of investors' money also, basically, to make this ecosystem strong. I think only electronics and agriculture, these two can make a $5 trillion economy. Forget about everything else, basically. If we just do electronics alone, good, $3 trillion economy can be built just from this, because we know the market cap of just Apple is $2 trillion. It's just a one mobile phone and do kaan ke jhumke, basically, and one laptop with three products actually. So that is the opportunity we are sitting right now, and super positive waves are coming in the country right now, whether from our customers, from our partners, what they are looking for right now. So I will say, Vinod sir, yes, challenges are there, whether that is a local ecosystem, then bringing the components right now from the lot of components come from China, Malaysia, Taiwan, Singapore. Those challenges are there, but despite those challenges, we have a golden opportunity. Next 5 years we perform, and I think we will be able to bring in next, I will say, we can become the superpower in next 10 years, basically, if we do everything the way that China is the superpower right now. Next 10 years it is our term right now. That's what I will say. I will let everybody else speak. That's what where we stand.
Thank you so much, Bhupi. I really admire your vision, your clarity of thought, and most importantly, the commitment. You are putting, as you rightly said in your own words, everything you want back into the business because you believe in that opportunity. And quite frankly, I don't think there is any other way. Any businessman at this point of time who holds back, is not really I would say, a full entrepreneur. So thank you very much. I think extremely inspiring your example. All of us in the industry, I know, are looking to your company as somebody who's taking a more aggressive bet than many other people have taken in the past. And so we wish you all the best. And I will, of course, come to you with some questions. In fact, we have two other panelists who are from the EMS part. And so it's also to them, do we really have an advantage, a cost advantage on EMS? But I will park that question for the moment, and I'd like your answers when I come back to you in the next round. Yeah, sure. Let me now go to a person who's made a living out of components. Pankaj, mera ishara aapki taraf hai. You know, your company is actually a brilliant company because even before I was born, your company was already making semiconductors, right? At a point of time when we didn't know what that meant, when India did not know, and even today we are asking ourselves the question, hey, do we have a future in active manufacturing, active capacitors manufacturing? God bless his soul, but your chairman at that point of time must have been quite one of my regrets is that I never got to know him. I know his son, your boss, Inderjeet, quite well now. But that must have been a crazy kind of entrepreneurial spirit at that point of time to even take a deep dive like that. From there, your company has, of course, seen the ups and downs. I know you are somebody with a very sharp strategic mind. So as a component maker, how do you see this? Do you see the same opportunity that we saw Bhupi articulating a little while ago? Do you see challenges? And most importantly, I think as the topic of this discussion is, what do we do at the base of the pyramid, the value addition perspective? I'd like you to touch upon that a little bit, Pankaj.
Morning, everybody. It's always a pleasure to have Vinod as a moderator. He covers the whole universe, so you don't know where to start and where to address. So it's wonderful to be having him on the panel. Okay, my focus is going to be a little limited. I can't see like what Vinod does. He looks at the picture and sees focusing on the ATMP and components. Okay, what has happened? I would like to come back in a few words, which Bhupi also said. This COVID-19 has actually affected our businesses. I would not deny that for the last 6 to 8 months, but at the same time, it's thrown opportunities. Now, those opportunities have come in various fields. In fields not only in components, it's come in the whole range of electronics. And these opportunities have actually presented us with basically a challenge, and challenge especially more so for the semiconductor, for the component areas, because semiconductors come under the ITA 1, which means the zero duty import. So that's firstly a major hurdle that the component semiconductor manufacturers, or any component manufacturer for that sake, even the capacitors or any resistors, they do face. But what we now see is a changed environment. The environment which the world is, what Vinod also said and what Bhupi addressed, the world is trying to look at ABC, anywhere but China, China plus one. So that's an environment that's now thrown open to us. So it's now up to us as a component manufacturers to accept that challenge. And as a company now, I'm talking about CDIL, we have accepted it. We will be installing and putting up new manufacturing lines on the surface mount components. We were the first one to start the surface mount in SOT23 in 1995. And now we'll be putting up 3 more surface mount lines in the next 1 year. What is actually that the change that I'm seeing in the environment is the government thinking, the PLI schemes, the specs. All this is a new thinking from the government in a way to support. And another thing that I've found in the last couple of weeks, I would say, is what we were seeing in China, the provincial competitiveness. I mean, Uttar Pradesh brings out a policy, Madhya Pradesh brings out another policy, Gujarat brings out a policy, and I'm surprised in my 40 years of experience. In the last 3 weeks, I've got direct calls from Karnataka, from Rajasthan, from Madhya Pradesh. Hey, why don't you guys come and put up lines here, a semiconductor line in our, and we'll give you such a facility. We've been hearing this in China. When I travel, we always hear this. So, all this environment is giving us a fantastic opportunity, what Bhupi said. And as a component manufacturer, despite the zero duty, what we believe in the last 2 years or so, the EMS has grown. Moment the EMS grows, the component demand will definitely grow. Now it's up to us or up to the customers, what Vinod had rightly said, to sit with the component manufacturers. That is what we now go and present to the EMS guys that, hey, we guys are here. You have a problem, you have a design issue, we are right here. You cannot discuss this with Chinese or with an XYZ outside. So all this, and we have seen a positive response. Believe me, we are getting, whether it's because of Atmanirbhar or because of persons, the owners himself, they are thinking that why not support India? Even my everyday sales meeting that we have on, all my salesmen say, sir, we go there, they want to say in the list of components, please tell us what do you make in India, we would like to buy it from you. And this is not only coming from the commercial side, of course, the defense side, everywhere. So I agree with what Bhupi said and what Vinod has been saying. This is an opportunity, and as a company, I think we are taking it on. Secondly, the employment opportunity in the component side is far more than the employment opportunity on the end product if you compare the sale price versus sale price. That's another possibility. That's a positive thing for a component. Yes, there are hurdles. The hurdles are that we do not have the ecosystem, we do not have the raw materials for making the components. All that is still being imported. But the positive on it is that the Taiwanese are now thinking of starting something on a raw material side. It's surprising that even to down to the molding compound, which is a specialized semiconductor raw material, they're wanting to start something here in India. So signs are positive. Next 5 years are exciting. I wish I was 20 years younger, but it is an exciting time. And I think my team here is geared up to take that. And I think most of the components guys that I've been talking of are willing to take this challenge. Thank you, Vinod.
Yes, Pankaj, if you were 20 years younger, your wife would definitely keep a sharper eye on you. So let me ask a very basic question, Sajan. This is to you. Amar Raja Group has done extremely well. I've had the pleasure of having a very insightful discussion, which was arranged by our dear friend with Jay Gallaji, and it was I would say very positive experience that a member of parliament had such a fantastic understanding of where the industry was going, what is happening. And this is a couple of years ago when we were trying to trying to understand how we could drive policy towards getting this thing. But from a person who's driving the EMS business for Amar Raja, my question to you is, does it really matter to you if the components which are at the base of the pyramid continue to come from China or Korea or wherever, or Malaysia, wherever they come from? Or does it really make a strategic difference to you, to your competitiveness as a company, if they were all available locally?
Okay, thank you, Vinodji, for that question. Okay, that's a good question, and probably any EMS would like to answer that question. So the whole point here is when we are talking about improving the electronics manufacturing or electronics business in India, what are we looking at? Globally, probably this is at a $2 trillion or $2.5 trillion business, electronics. In India, probably with the data available like 2018-19 figures, this is something like a $120-130 billion business, right? Electronics per se. And what actually, am I freezed? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you very well.
I think your video went off for a little while, but we could hear you clearly. So please go ahead.
Okay, right. So what are we looking at? We have to see what the market is talking about. We are talking about a market which is contributing probably 2.5% to 3% to the GDP 2 years back, with about $70 billion in manufacturing. That is the contribution to the economy, which is expected to grow at 30% to maybe 25 to 30% year over year, with the kind of traction that we are seeing now. Now, to answer your question, the question is why should people come to India to do electronics manufacturing? Sometime back, yes, everybody wanted to do manufacturing, but there was always many options available. I myself have worked in Malaysia, which was the hotbed of electronics manufacturing, maybe a decade and a half back. Then we always had the option of China. And I think the country itself is, for various reasons, probably some of the reasons are global, some of the reasons are regional. We have a very big market that is evolving in India. Second, there are other geopolitical issues that is in front of us. So there is definitely a requirement to have a local or India we can say it vocal for local, or in whatever way we can. But there is definitely a trust, and there is importance to having at least some major portion of your supply chain in India. Today, if you look at the electronics industry, we have the industry stalwarts here who have done their own bit of bringing this change in India, whether it be Mr. Gulati or Mr. Sharan or Mr. Banwari, who has been in, and yourself also, who has been in semiconductors, in components, in PCB, in design, all that thing we have. But there is a long way to go. It definitely matters to us that there is a robust supply chain in India. When I look at my bill of material, do an analysis on quarter over quarter, I find that majority of it is coming from outside. Majority. But we need to reach a stage where we have some. I'm not being over optimistic, thinking that India is going to have all the components manufactured here, all the PCB manufactured here, everything. No, it may not be that. But today there is no balance. The balance is very less. Probably you are 80% depending on external sources, probably 20% depending on their country. But if you have, and that puts you on a gunpoint at many a time, right? So when what we say is Amara Raja as a group, we had always been, whichever industry we are working, whether it be batteries, whether it be power electronics, whether it be any other industry that we are in, strategically we have always had a policy that we should be sourcing as much as possible from India, and we in fact have spent huge amount of time and money into localizing the stuff in India. So electronics is a tricky story. Electronics, you cannot have that option straight away. So the only option is to strengthen this pyramid that is in India, and it definitely makes a difference, because if you look at the disability factor itself, which some of us has been working on for some time now, one of the issues is this, right, of not having the right bill of material cost when you are actually manufacturing in India, while your competitors working in other parts of the country. I'm not talking about maybe the disability is less when it comes to very high volume manufacturing, but definitely for the majority of the people, Indian grown EMS companies who are mostly MSMEs at this in today's definition per se, this is a big factor. When you have a disability of 6 or 7% compared to China, there is definitely a reason why we should have the local manufacturing in India, at least to a reasonable, healthy percentage. That's my answer to that question. Vinod, you're on mute.
You're on mute, Vinod.
Sorry, so sorry. Sajid, no, thank you for that comment. My question to you was that would you like to let us know a little bit about how Amara Raja is looking at this opportunity as it emerges for us, the electronics manufacturing in India now?
Yeah, primarily we are primarily in the electronic manufacturing services business, right? So probably I would say that it is not. It is at the beginning, stage of this pyramid, right? You are more of a assembler. You are more of a system integrator. You are most of a company doing testing and such sort of value addition to this segment. And of course, we do some level of design, but that is one area that where we are putting our thrust maximum into now, more than to be a real ESDM. So our area of focus today is to integrate our capabilities. So one more thing here is that if you look at the infrastructure that the EMS should have in India, it is not only about electronic components. We need to have sheet metals. We need to have plastic injection moldings. We need to have world-class tool rooms in India. We need to have excellent cable harnessing facilities in India. Only then this whole ecosystem becomes sustainable. Otherwise, it will just become something like assembling in India. So today what we have is that we have in-house sheet metal fabrication. We do our own all the sheet metal activities. We have an excellent tool room in place. We have all the injection molding facilities. We have a complete design team. So that part of the thing is there. And we are having a growing EMS business. We are trying to bring in more of the design activity into the EMS business. So this whole ecosystem will provide as a single window or single stop shop for the customer to come and use our services. So this is where we are. But definitely this is not enough. We need to have the other industries growing in India in the same sector itself, as well as in the component sector itself. so that we have a sustainable ecosystem in India. And as a country, see, there is nothing like one person win or two-person win. So what China has done 20 or 25 years back, I think this is the time when India should wake up to that call. And along this process, I believe that everybody has got a space to grow and become bigger and better. So this is what I see. We have a portion of that ecosystem in-house. We are definitely trying to increase it in capability and capacity. But that's one area that we will like to play in this whole process of things.
Thank you. Yeah, excellent. No, it's great to see that you're trying to seize the opportunity. And as I hear from the speakers, I think we are all sort of on the same page as far as saying that the number of opportunities that are coming to us, as Bhupi also said, even without making a sales effort, is quite large. So the interest on India is very, very strong at the moment.
Yes.
And, so I'm sure we're going to hear some great success stories coming out of your group too as we go along. Our best wishes with that. Let me now turn to Sunil. Sunil, and I have a question for you, as always. You are the largest PCB maker in the country by far. Your bouquet of technologies that you bring to PCB are probably the best in the world, amongst the best in the world, if I may say so. But you don't spend very much money. Yeah. Why your Indian customers don't like you, and everybody else does?
Good question, Vinod. So I think we are not among the best. I just want to correct. We are the best. So we are the number one worldwide in terms of technology. So definitely no Indian PCB customer should go anywhere else in the world if they want the technology. So I think to the question of whether my Indian customers like me or not, I think that's I'll try to answer it politically because I don't want to piss off any of my Indian customers. But definitely we are doing almost 90% of our business is exports, and I think if you look at the Indian customers we are serving, I think they are happy with what we provide to them. But really, I think if you look at the breakup, I think our story, even though we are small domestically, is a reflection of how the PCB industry in India is it's a microcosm of how the PCB industry in India is. So we are supplying primarily to the industrial, to the automotive, but I think all of you know the success story on mobile. On mobile phones, India has done really well. We are a net exporter of mobile phones. So I think all of this has come in place due to a lot of hard work by everybody. And I think that's something India should be proud of. But I think the sad reality is that there's not a single PCB made in India which is consumed by the mobile phone makers today. Now, I don't think that's due to bad intent. I think they have the best intentions. But I think having looked into this closely, I think we are confident we can make a breakthrough. It doesn't have to be this way. And I think with a focus on Atmanirbhar or whatever you like to call it, I think I see things are improving. I think we just have to be smarter about how we go about it. I think if you look at the component, so when we talk about the component ecosystem, right? I think you should almost look at it like a multi-dimensional problem. For the EMS maker, the PCBA is the component. For the PCBA, the PCB is the component. And for the PCB, the laminate is the component. So as you go further down the supply chain, you find less and less components are made in India, which makes it hard for the lowest one down the chain to be competitive in India, because historically the focus in India has been on pricing, which is for good reason. So I think again, there is a lot of ways to address that, and I've been in discussion with some of the mobile phone companies on how to do that. I think the best way to do that is really given that in mobile phones, for instance, we have very high buying power now. We are the big gorilla after maybe China, US, and we use that leverage. When we buy from China, we don't have to stop buying from China, but when we buy PCBs from China, for instance, all we have to do is, and this is something I learned when I was at Intel for 20 years in the semiconductor industry. I was purchasing $1 billion for Intel. It's very easy if you have a lot of buying power to ask your supplier, okay, tell me the cost of your component and also the subcomponent. So for instance, with just a simple trick like that, the mobile phone maker can get down the cost of the subcomponent, and they can tell me, AT&S, you're the largest one, you still cannot meet my price, but here's what I will do. I will procure the component for you, which is driving up your price higher. Now you just have to add your labor cost. And if it comes to labor cost, I know my own company has a factory in China. I know I'm cheaper than China already when it comes to labor and the whole thing. So I think we can compete favorably with China on the things we have an advantage on, which is labor. But I think until the component subsystem is available down to the lowest level, all we can do, what we can do very successfully is pressure the component makers from China to open up. Because what they are doing, I hate to say it, but I think some of the Chinese companies are dumping. They are saying the price is low, but really they are hiding it in the cost of their subcomponent. So if you get a good quotation on the price of the subcomponent and tell them, okay, I'll just get the subcomponent from you instead of the component PCB, and I can assemble the PCB. And in fact, we can actually see costs going down by buying in India. So I think there is creative ways to do it. At Intel, I did it all the time, working with suppliers to ask them, give me all the components of your pricing. And I think with that, we can achieve a breakthrough because I think that's the most intractable one. The labor we are good at, capital, human capital, India is blessed with, and capital is getting better due to PLI. So if you take out capital, if you take out the recurring cost like power, which is also subsidized in some of the state PLIs, all you're left with is component cost. And the component cost, I think, with a creative solution, which doesn't even need government intervention, to someone's point, we need to don't need to go begging to the government for this. If we are creative in how we apply the standard purchasing techniques, which are used by world-class companies, we can make a dramatic breakthrough. That's my 2 cents. Yes.
You make an excellent point, Sunil. Often when the question on my mind largely was this: that how do we get an AT&S to become a supplier to all the PCB buyers in India? I mean, and there are obviously, as you rightly pointed out, there is a price gap, and as you mentioned, it is probably because of one of the key components, maybe the laminates, your buying price compared to the international life. And so, you're absolutely right, and there are only 2 or 3 ways of doing this, and I just like to sort of talk a little bit about that because I think it's very important to what we are discussing today. One of the ways is the Maruti model of where they came into the country, they kind of decided that it was their role to develop a supply chain. And I'm sure that in the early years, all these auto component guys, some fantastic companies today who are all multi-billion-dollar enterprises, are really Indian-grown MNCs. You look at a Minda, a Motherson Sumi, a Sona Comstar. I mean, there are several of these names, who have done extremely well. Thanks to this one kind of mothership that decided to spawn this fantastic bevy of component supply. So that could be one way of looking at it. I don't know if that ship has sailed, to be honest, whether one or two large companies can take that on. And my proposal is, and because we have 3 of you from the EMS business, is I don't know if a Sony or a Philips or a Panasonic or a Samsung can take on that role. Because there is nobody as large as Maruti out of any of them from a market share perspective and also from a timing perspective. Had this happened 20 years ago, it was possible. But can EMS companies get together and say, all these base of the pyramid components, the passives, some of the actives that are made here, the wire-wound components, the PCBs, the electromechanicals, as I like to call them, connectors, relays, these are all made in India. A little later, I'd like to do a very quick poll to understand what the price gaps, etc., are, but we'll hold our horses till then. So obviously, there is a price gap. But if EMS companies decide that, look, our first preference, stated first preference, and all EMS companies put together, so we don't need the government to make a statement saying we will buy Indian as much as possible. And in the next 5 years or 3 years, we will deliver this massive component base to the world. Because if you start insisting on it, so I don't know how much role you have. Your own customers will also question you. But is that a workable idea? That we try and get the EMS companies to play a little bit of this mothership role, of course, in conjunction with their own customers. Is that far-fetched like many of my ideas, Sriram, or do you see that this is possible?
No, I think it is definitely possible. I don't think I would say the mothership has sailed. But we need to have a credible mothership, which is really an Indian ship, because if you're talking about the multinationals, they would prefer to bring their own ecosystem, like a Hyundai did in Chennai, say 20 years back. So I think it makes eminent sense for an Indian company, be it in mobile phones or other domains, to do this. I think we all have to kind of collectively get together and say, look, we are here to support you. We are here to put down the investments. We are here to give you design support as well as support on manufacturing. I think the initial years are going to be tough. Of course, I do see the government slowly moving to protect us, at least for a short period, which they should have done long time back. But I think today, I am starting to see that the government wants to do a little bit of protection, which they gave to the auto component industry at that time. But I think that ship has sailed, if you want to call it that. But I think there is still a chance that there is one big ship that can come in and say, I want to develop the local ecosystem. It could even be a multinational. I mean, I don't want to be uncharitable towards them. It could be like, I establish JVs for you. I insist that my current customers have to do this. I think government can play a very proactive role in this government to government interaction. I think there is something like that happening already with Japan. So a lot of push from the Japanese government could actually make Japanese companies come to India and actually set up JVs. I'm saying this, because we already have done this 2 years back. We are a manufacturing partner, a very active partner with a Japanese company. We did it for other reasons, but Japanese companies have always been a little shy to come to India. They don't know the lay of the land. They really wanted an Indian partner. So I think what you're saying is possible, absolutely possible. A little push from both the governments can get us into a situation where uh, we have a potential JVs with a little push. And I think that could happen because Japan finally has opened it up for India and Bangladesh in the last 10 days instead of just the Southeast Asian countries. So I think that is the route that I see things coming in and making life easy for us. Of course, we should also gear up. I think we cannot just sit still and say, we have been doing business in a certain way. We'll continue to do it. As Bhupi said, huge opportunities. We are at an inflection point. Sorry to use cliched terms here, but we are definitely at the cusp now, and like he said, agriculture and electronics seem to be the areas to be in, and I'm glad we are all here. I'm very sure 20, 30 years back, people said, what a curse, that I got into this area, but today it's really a blessing. And it's all digital everywhere and IoT everything. So I think this is the right time. And I think if somebody wants to move in that direction, great chance, great chance.
Great, Sriram, as always. Yeah. Okay, on the screen, every screen looks different, I know, but on my screen, three of us, that's me, Sunil, and Pankaj, are sort of now on the left side of the screen, the component guys. And for some reason, the three EMS guys are on the right side of my screen. I don't know how that's stacked up. So I'm going to ask a question in that form. So to the three of us first here, the component guys, let's take this question. A lot of my customers would say, or a lot of our customers would say, hey, all this is good talk. You guys are not putting your money where your mouth is. Okay, we will start buying local, but you guys don't even make 20, 30% of what we want. Our dependence on, if I look at passives, electrolytic capacitors are not made here at all. Film capacitors for all the big speak I do, we are still 30% of the market share. And maybe a few other colleagues of mine put together, we might be at 50%. It's better than the others, but it's still. Even something like transformers and inductors, where there is a duty of 7.5%, we know that there is a reasonable amount of inductors and transformers that are being imported. It's not as large as the others. So, what are we guys? Are we guys on the component, and we represent the industry now? The three of us. Are we willing to put our money where our mouth is? Are we willing to expand, take these risky bets? Because as you know, in components, and this is probably known to everybody, the PLI, much spoken about, but that investment to turnover ratio of 1:6 does not apply to us poor component guys. We are more used to a investment to turnover of 1:1. You get very lucky 1.5 or 2, and that's it. Correct me if I'm wrong. So that sort of a thing. Do we have? So Sunil, I'll go to you first. I know you have deeper pockets than the two of us combined. So over to you first.
I think, yeah. I mean, as you said, I think the PLI is something we have actually signed up for. I think I think conceptually it's a very good idea. We have been involved in the conceptualization. But as you're right, I think the threshold is too high. Even though we are the largest in India, I don't expect us to qualify this year, especially with coronavirus and all the affected impact to the economy. But I think definitely, I think the comparative disadvantages we have with other countries, right? As I mentioned earlier, are threefold. One is the capital, the PLI, and the MSIPs help with that. I think the labor is really completely in our control, and I think India is blessed in that respect. Uh, I think the scale, the component piece, which we talked about earlier, and the scale. I think what the PLI does is, it helps us to get to the scale. But definitely, to your point on whether we need the EMSs to partner with us, I think that's really the starting point. I think the EMSs, what we would probably request from them is, we know it's not sustainable to ask you to buy from us at a higher pricing. I'd be fooling myself if I said, okay, Mr. EMS, just because you're so patriotic and we all love the Tiranga, that you should buy from me at a higher price. That's not going to happen. But I think if you at least throw some business our way, so we can justify and start making qualifying our parts, get you to start supplying some of our products, and also work the component gaps. And I think with the supplier selection processes, the EMSs or even your end customers OEMs can make a decision on whether our cost is eventually, because if you allow us to create a cost roadmap which goes to your goal, rather than wanting an immediately a cost price which is competitive with China here and now, I think that will give us the landing leeway if you need. That's what we can get your help on to get to your target. So don't compromise on your cost expectation just because we are Indian, but definitely give us some leeway to give you a cost roadmap, which allows us to get on our feet little by little. Don't give us a lot of business at the beginning, but at least allow us to develop to your cost expectations in a timeline we can both manage.
Yeah. So yeah, let's build a strategic roadmap together, is what you're saying. Yeah, whether it's cost or quantities and stuff like that. And I presume you'll be willing to invest based on those roadmaps. Pankaj, isn't
Yes,
this
absolutely.
will you be able to convince our friend Indradeep to put in more money into your manufacturing? You're on mute. I think Indradeep has muted you.
Sorry about that. I'll come on that a little later. Sorry. That was a good one, Vinod. Okay, you know him well. Okay, as far as we are concerned, I think what Sunil has just said is very right. EMS, we do need a little support from EMS. So he's covered that in a very right way. And that support, I think every component company in manufacturing today needs. What is definitely, as a component expansion growth that is required, is technology is one part of it. Let's not deny the fact that today the components, especially on the semiconductor side, the technology is evolving so rapidly that as a company, India now needs, as company CDIL also now needs a technology infusion on the high-end ICs or SOP8 packages or those packages. We have the capability to manufacture, let's put it this way, because we've been doing it for 50 years, but technology is one part of it. Secondly, any investment on a semiconductor line, which we've been working on for the last 1 month, 1.5 months, on an investment value, what has been rightly said that PLI does not help us because investments are very capital intensive investment. So that brings investment is not more than 1:1. In fact, 1:1.15 also could be 1.5 also could be difficult, but 1:1 is a reasonable thing. So we are expecting government to possibly bring out some 1:1 policy on the PLI. Thirdly, now the market. Moment you put in any line on semiconductors, the volume generated is huge. And most of the lines are dedicated. If you're going in for a IC package of 8 lead or 23 lead or something, it's a dedicated to that IC package. Now, those markets that type of volume markets do not exist in India. So we have to have some international market there, and that's where the export comes into a picture. With all this in view, let's put it this way, that as CDIL, since you addressed the question, despite not having a pro PLI policy, but we've already applied for specs and we are planning to invest heavily this year on 3 surface mount lines, which will probably come in position within the next, I think, early quarter 2020. And besides that, we are talking to some of our customers wherever they feel they have a supplier, component supplier sitting in Taiwan or even in China and wanting to start the plant in India. We are willing to invest. As an investment, yes, we are willing to invest, We have built 20,000 square feet of clean room space in our current facility as an additional space, completely ready to accept any semiconductor plant. So that amount has been committed, it's already built. So what we are now talking is to some component manufacturers to come in for the next end technology. But as a company, we see it an exciting time and we are willing to invest and grow. And we already committed for the surface mount lines besides the technology or any partner that we are looking at. So that probably answers your question. Yes, we are going to go ahead with it. There are times we are expecting a PLI scheme to come. If it comes in, we'll be happy. Otherwise, we are going ahead.
Great. Yeah, no, that's very, very positive and also is encouraging because even we are making a big investment, and I thought I was alone. So it's good to know that that I'm not making a mistake. You know, when Susanil. So the good news is I think component guys are now gearing up for some investments, and obviously this is they need to be careful and then in tie-ups with people like you in the EMS and our finished goods. This could make a lot of sense. Let me turn to you now in the EMS section. For some reason, now you're all three diagonally stacked across my screen. So I'll begin with you, Bhupi. What is it that we can do along with the component guys in ensuring that at least those base of the pyramid components begin to get made in larger numbers? For example, can we develop an industry roadmap that says, look, on these components, we want to get to a 50% localization in the next 5 years? For which these are the following things we are willing to do. And hopefully one section of that and a smaller section of that is what we can tell the government to do through their policies. But a larger section must be something that we can all do together. Do you see this as a workable plan, Bhupi?
Yeah, it looks workable. So we have to start from discrete and the connector perspective first, basically. The first goal should be, because this is, I will not say nothing is easy in this world, and you know more than, because you are doing the capacitors. So first we shall say resistor, capacitor, inductor, and the connectors basically. So if we are, because that is reasonably easy and the investment is less as compared to putting a IC fab or semiconductor fab and that big time fabs basically. I'll say that shall be the first goal, whether we do through the JVs or we do here with our own investment and our own knowledge basically. I still think basically bringing the partners from the Taiwan, Japan, Korea, except the China, we bring the partners from there, we do the JVs, whether it's for the resistor, capacitor, inductor, connectors basically. The first phase or diodes, the first phase shall take care of this thing. Because in this the investment is little bit low, that kind of investment the with the in the PLI scheme and the local people like us and entrepreneurs and the businessmen, they can do that kind of investments, I will say. The next phase shall be also all the EMS and the manufacturing company like VVDN or Sirma or the another people or let's say Dixon, they shall do all the effort to buy from these local suppliers basically. That also has to happen. Otherwise, if you put the local and we still keep giving the purchase order to China, that doesn't make sense basically. So that is the first aim which we can achieve in next 2 years or 2.5 years. That's a very big breakthrough. And after that 2.5 years, when we have reached to that level, then we need to talk about the semiconductor, whether it's a processor, IC, RAM, flash, and that kind of level basically. So this is the two stage we have to take, and that is more realistic as compared to we start putting a that our dream of putting a 20 or $100 billion fab here, which never happened basically. So I think we need to take in two steps. That's what I will say.
Right. No, so yeah, it needs to be a stepwise roadmap that is shared with everybody. Sriram, would you agree with that? And do you see that we can build a roadmap together between the I'm always enamored. Recently, I don't know if some of you attended the ACMA annual day, the automobile components. And my dream, Raju, and this is also addressed to you, my dream is to have an annual day like that for the electronic components. The scale, the grandeur, and the whole vision of what those people are doing, and how closely they work with SIAM, the Society for Indian Automobile, their customer body, is really a benchmark, I think, somewhere in the world for component people and customers to be working together. And if you are in customers, we have two sets of customers, as we can see, the EMS and then the brands, I would say, largely. And I think we need to use that as a benchmark to work together towards that. But for now, I would say, Sriram, what are your thoughts on some of those roadmaps?
Yeah, I think it's possible, and it's also imperative that we do that. In our Bawal plant, which is in the DTA side of things, we had actually put this policy on the table, saying, look, you absolutely must localize in the next 2 to 3 years, starting with a few non-critical things, and then slowly move the way up. So our own little PMP program. The initial experience has been very painful, not on the cost, but the delivery commitments not being met, some quality issues, holes in the wrong places, but so this is very quickly there is a pushback. Obviously, there is a huge stonewalling or even resistance from my guys. But I said, look, this will happen. This is going to happen. Let's have a plan B for some time, but after that I kind of taper it off. You have to sit and work with the local guys, because it doesn't make sense to import with all this dollar going back and forth. It doesn't make sense to have imports for our DTA facility. In like you said, in our SEZ facility, we are protected, but not there. So I think that kind of roadmap is already there, and I hope all the other companies follow the same roadmap. Unless many more companies have this, I think we're not going to improve the quality. I know I have come from the ACMA side of things. I was in their national executive committee. I know how we were in the 90s, mid 90s. I have seen it evolve. I was there in the auto industry till about 2011, and the initial phase we sucked. Absolutely, we were horrendous. And but slowly but surely, but I think by 2003-4 we had already kind of turned the corner, and we were like many more companies were TPM TQM certified. They really understood quality. They had brought in a lot of Japanese senseis who were kind of keeping them on their toes. So it worked, and we got tremendous support from people like Maruti, because Maruti lets you sleep well at night till the point that you have your first complaint. The moment you have your first big complaint with them, you're done. You cannot sleep anymore. It's audit after audit after audit. So I think that is the kind of thing that we have to do from the intermediate customer stage, which is the EMS equivalent. And then the final product guy is going to hold the EMS people responsible for the quality. So we have to, handhold. We have to do those audits. We have to get the component guys up to speed. Some of them already are, because they are exporting. Some of them could be JVs in future, so they will get there very fast, even without our help. But there would be a few people who would definitely need a lot more handholding, and that's exactly what happened in ACMA. So you see a solid tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, with at least an ISO certification and things like that. I think the quality levels are, you can at least vouch for them today, but it wasn't so 20 years back. I can give you that piece of insight from my, having straddled in that world. So I think we are right where we were at, say, maybe 97, 98 in the ACMA world, or the
Right.
component world. And I think we have to take it forward. And some of us have to do the dirty work, so that 20 years later, or even 10 years later, our successors feel good about the whole thing. They bring in stuff from local component makers. It'll happen. It'll happen.
Yes.
Absolutely.
That's interesting, because so far we were discussing the cost differences, but you bring in this very appropriate spin to the whole thing, where I think the rigor that we need as component makers in terms of quality adherence and delivery adherence more than anything else
Right.
is probably still is what you're pointing to. Sajjan, would you agree? Do you also see that our component guys still need to pull up their socks literally?
Um, I have probably there are two things which I would like to add to what Mr. Bhupender said and Dr. Sriram said. See, if you look at yes, there is definitely some more improvement in terms of cost, consistency, and quality. In terms of some of the components that we have, not everybody, at least some portion of this. One of the thing which I always think is that there are two things which I feel is very important. One is that if you look at the EMS, except for some of the passives and some of the line items, most of the bill of materials is being decided by the OEM themselves, right? So the EMS have an option of participating in it when we do the DFM part of it or the DFX before the beginning of the while the design is being made. We have some say, but the majority of say is rests with the OEM. So it points to the fact that how much of design is happening in India, where the Indian manufacturers are really reaching out to the design elements of within these companies. We are not bad. We probably have 1 million designers across the country working in original OEM design centers, right? And some of the largest companies in the world has got their second largest probably design centers in India. For example, LG is having their second largest design center outside US, outside Korea in India. So there are good examples in this field. So typically what really matters is that whether the Indian manufacturers are getting onto the bill of material at the design point. If that is being done, this game automatically starts there. And if there is a Indian component manufacturer in the bill of material, I'm sure that 100% of the Indian manufacturer or whoever is operating in India would love to have it. And especially when you are selling in India, when, as Dr. Sriram was saying, see this dollar fluctuation is a big issue. Every now and then we have to go back to the customer, right? With whatever agreed terms and contracts that we have. But many times it is burning, especially when you saw dollar went to 76.5. There was bloodbath in this industry. When whoever was selling into India, it is naturally more attractive to whoever are exporting. But this element is very, very key. How much of design activity is happening in India? We have a very strong design force. Is it enough? No. I'm not talking about the design activities that is happening at the value added stage in EMS or ESDM stage. I'm talking about the original design where the OEM themselves is doing it here. Probably if there's 1 million designers we have today and the proportional amount of design that is happening with OEM, imagine if it is doubles to 3 times, and where our Indian manufacturers today, of course, they are reaching out to global design houses and design centers, but I think it is not enough. We need to design more of Indian made components into the bill of material of the OEM. And for that, there are two things that you need to have definitely a technology for that, definitely a cost to that. See, whatever is said and done, no customer is actually today ready to pay anything more, because I think that is exactly what Mr. Banwari has said. So nobody is actually ready to pay more because you are manufactured in India. At when that comes to that point, the next question is that do we have a cheaper option available? Right? Not by compromising quality, with the same quality, do we have a cheaper option available? Because the end customer is also working in a very competitive thing. See, auto industry did it very well because they had economies of scale, right? They really had a big thing, and then they said, okay, in this years, we need to have the manufacturing coming indigenized into India. Now, here is something that the bigger EMS can play, right? I'm not talking about the MSMEs, along with probably the bigger ones. When they have a huge buy in India, they probably can put certain norms within their supply base. That if I have to continue, because they have a much bigger say with the OEM as well. If we have to continue doing this, who is ready to come and manufacture in India? The components. So it automatically, that supply chain starts happening. So one is that how much we can do with the design part of it. Second is that how much economies of scale we can use. And today, EMS industry or electronics manufacturing is per se very strong, right? Most of us know, some of us actually know for better because we have been working on certain things. We have almost, let's say 10,000 to 11,000 SMT lines across India. That's fairly big, right? Fairly very big. And much of this now is not only with the EMS, but also with other people who are making lighting products, somebody making automotive electronics, somebody making other mobile phones. So all put together, there is a force today in the market. And if we can believe what we say, this is going to double probably in another 2 to 3 years' time. So there is definitely a market which is manufacturing for India and for the world. And this goes back to your older question, whether how EMS can bring this change for the component manufacturing. So probably instead of taking it on their own shoulders, probably it may not be the right competency as far as I believe, because EMS has got certain other competencies. Component manufacturing is a different ballgame. So of course, some of these things like the wound components, like transformers or inductors, those are things we can do. I believe some of the EMS we do it to our own, to an extent, to our own requirements. There are other EMS which I know who are doing the wound components. But connectors, of course, it was a strong area in India. I mean, connectors has been world-class connectors has been made way back from 1980. I started my career in a company like that, and even today, most of the major guys have it. Whether you call it Amphenol or FCI or Molex, most of them have factories. But did they actually scale up to that level where they started? My answer is no, because the majority of the things went to China. Some of these companies can definitely scale up things in India. I'm sure they will do it because they are seeing the opportunity coming here. But on the other side, again, I go back to the point, involving into the design of the OEM is critical on one side. Second side, there has to be an effort from the EMS platform, which we do not have today, to see that how much we can drive manufacturers to come and set shops in India so that this is locally sourced. When mobile phones are made in so big numbers for Indian market, definitely, it makes sense. So this is my my opinion on your question.
Oh, some excellent thoughts there. Thanks so much, Sajjan. Raju brings us to a point where I think as an action plan, and my suggestion would be maybe we can house it under your property of Source India. This EMS component dialogue can become something of a prominent feature. In fact, I would go as far as saying maybe twice a year we have this dialogue where we have all EMS companies, and it's more like a customer supplier discussion on saying what is it that we want to achieve in the next 6 months in terms of cost, price, quality. What are the components that we are focused on? And similarly, the component guys may have their own issues. I think together we can achieve a hell of a lot. For example, an idea that springs to my mind is the base of the pyramid component that we just discussed. All these passives, electromechanicals, connectors, as Bhupi also mentioned. Can we have an accredited lab for them, which all EMS companies take as a neutral lab? So instead of each one of them trying to test it for their own parameters, there are some of them that can be tested there. And once you're approved by that lab, at least this bunch of 20 top EMS companies in India is not going to ask you too many questions. And hence it can be a dedicated facility. Alcina could be playing a role there, So there are some thoughts I think that emerge obviously out of discussions like this. This will be one of them. What I'm going to do now is ask you all to switch on your videos. Bhupi is, for example, and then I'm sure you have a paper and a pen with you. I'm going to ask you a few numbers, and the answer you just write it down and show it in a screen. Why I'm doing that is because if we begin to speak of those numbers, then we might influence each other's answers. So I hope that's going to be interesting to everybody.
Right.
Yeah, get a sheet of paper out, something like that, and just a pen that you can write with. So my first question is, what is the, I'm talking about base of the pyramid components now. What is the cost percentage difference between the target price that the customer has and what we are able to deliver? So of course, the component people will answer it from their perspective, but as customers, you can answer it saying, this is the cost difference that you still see in Indian companies vis-a-vis Chinese companies. Just 1% is what I need. And you can show it on the screens. I'm going to put it at what I think is for capacitors, but I don't know the rest of it so much. Yeah, I don't think we can see it very clearly, right, with the small pen. Sorry. So
We can see.
Pankaj, is that 7 to 10%, right? And Sriram, you are, sorry, I'm not, 50% is what Sriram says.
Yeah, no, Sriram is 15%.
Yeah, that's a better pen.
Rajesh, can we see your thing also a little bit closer to the...
Pankaj is 7 to 10. Sajjan says 3, right?
3%,
Yes.
yeah.
3%.
Mine is 7. Mine is 7.
Mine is 8 to 10.
8 to 10 is Pankaj. And Sunil, what is yours? I can't see it. It's too white. You can read it out.
15.
15.
Yeah, that's what I see, 15.
15. That's interesting. your customer says you're only 3% away and you say I'm 15% away. So you're obviously aiming at the wrong customer.
Yeah, give me a call. I would like your business tomorrow.
Let me. I think I got that question also slightly differently.
Sure.
The person when I say was that with respect to the overall product that is delivered by an EMS to its customer.
Okay.
I
Okay.
don't think that our even component base. I don't think that we are. I'm not very particular about the PCB, but I don't think that we are. In my experience, if we are 10-15%, I don't think so. As an EMS, we also compete with EMS companies, OEMs moving products out of China. What I see is mostly it is 3% to 5% is the difference from an EMS deliverable standpoint, not from a component standpoint.
Yeah. No, that is interesting because I think that 3% is like you rightly say we are almost there. Because if you look at things like foreign exchange fluctuations, you look at logistics costs, you look at somebody holding up your goods at the port. I think customers should be willing to pay that 3% more at least for EMS. And my guess is that if we can get 5 to 7% for components, we would be in a home run, as the Americans would say. Except, of course,
I think if we are too expensive, then this EMS industry will not thrive in India. Wherever you are selling it, you need to be competitive, whether it is in India or comparable to anywhere else. To a certain extent, duties and taxes can play to your advantage. But essentially, at the end of the day, we need to get competitive. That is one thing. Second thing is that probably some of the subsidies and things that some of the companies get outside in China is playing the spoil spot compared to us. But I think we are also going in the same direction. So probably, yes, I don't think that we are far away. That's why one reason I personally believe we are very optimistic about this business. But there will be, I agree to many of them. There are certain pockets where, the price difference is very huge, but not everywhere.
Not everywhere. Yeah. My answer was actually, I couldn't show it, is plus minus 5%. And why I say minus is that we are, again, when you say a capacitor, we assume it's the same capacitor for LED would have the same answer for automotive components, for example. And the answers are huge. So in some components, we are beginning to feel that we are actually maybe even 5% cheaper than what we get out of China. But why I'm saying that is, definitely not sort of selling my own company. That's not the idea. The idea is with scale, I realize that it is actually possible to beat the Chinese on price. Even in spite of all the disabilities and everything we talk about. So it's one is scale. The second thing is, and I must thank my customers there, the predictability. If they're able to give me reasonably a peek into what's going to happen in 3 months from now, in 6 months from now, the kind of volumes they will be requiring, I think we are able to have a good discussion, and which is why I'm a great believer in communicating with the customers as often as possible and getting this peak. Yeah, Sriram, you want to come in?
Yeah, actually, you made a very interesting point. We are also in the component industry in the sense because we make some transformers or inductors, chokes. That's a good 15% of our top line. We actually consistently beat the Chinese on pricing, in spite of all the disabilities.
Excellent.
But of course, we are cheating a little bit because copper wire still comes from China, but we do all the finishing, and it's also original design of ours. So we probably have that advantage. But I think we have been beating the Chinese on pricing.
But that's not to be taken like. I think it's a great strength. If 70% of your material it is a slightly disadvantage, definitely no disadvantage. You can't get it cheaper than China. And in the other 30% or 20% value add, if you're able to make that difference, obviously we're doing something right. So and the reasons for us to scale that up are tremendously high. One point I definitely want to sort of reiterate, and Sajjan, you made that very emphatically, was the design element. Now if you look at transformers, you mentioned. I'm working on the EV side a little bit nowadays. On electric vehicles, the role that chargers and wireless charging and stuff like that is happening in that is all dependent on inductors and capacitors.
Right.
And I think there's this is one area which I'm just wanting to leave it for the audience also, that is an area. These new areas give us some completely new insights, where our traditional discussions around costing and stuff like that don't hold water. So also don't miss out on those. I would say. Okay, next question. I think the paperwork is not working, but we can speak it out. what would be the percentage of growth you see in your own companies next year? Forget 2021 is a year for us to survive and revive, whatever that word is. But hopefully 21-22 would be a year where our thriving begins to happen. So as a percentage, would you want to name what
You're,
you're
you're asking from the revenue perspective?
yeah, top line. Let's talk top line at the moment, yes.
I think we are anticipating 80%.
80%? Wow. Wow, God bless you. Now that's really, really good, Bhupi. Very encouraging. Sriram, you said 30% or?
30%.
30%. Yeah, I was worried when you said 3%. 30%. And Sajid, what do you think from your company's perspective?
We estimate, okay, this year was a difficult one, but other than that, if you compare on a trend, we are expecting close to 40 to 50% rise coming year.
Super. Now let's look at the
40 to 50%.
20 to 25%.
It's not bad. Not bad at all. And Sonal, how about you?
Sorry, as the representative of a publicly traded MNC, I'm not allowed to, but I think we applied for the PLI. So definitely, if you know the PLI targets, we are optimistic next year.
Yeah, so it's large. What are surprises? I tell you that. Great. Even in our case, of course, we are undertaking an expansion, and I can say that we are looking at between 30 and 40%. So I think if you go across the room, this is something which is worthy of putting on a press note out of Elsina. You know, not many sectors are talking of that kind of growth today, and we don't do it from any other perspective. But I think it's important for people to know that when we speak opportunities, we mean that these are opportunities, and we are gearing up for that, both the component side and the EMS side.
But this is, sorry, I'll just ask one question. This is, expected in 21-22, right?
Right. In comparison with 2021.
Can you compare it to 2021 or 19?
I thought it was 2021.
I thought 2021.
Yeah. That's right. 1920 is a history and we want to forget it and move on. Great. Okay. I think we have just the last 5 minutes left. If you agree with me, I think it's been a wonderful chat so far. I've enjoyed, asking you gentlemen some really cool questions. Great answers coming my way. But we can't go without talking about the government and its policies. I must say that they've been very positive. We discussed partly the PLI and a PLI for components with different thresholds, much lower thresholds. I would say 10, 20 crores, maybe 30 crores, but no more than that. And also the investment. But besides this, do we see other policies? And I want to just sort of prime the pump a little bit when I say that an interesting policy I all read through is the public procurement policy, by DPIIT, which was now converted into a MATI order, where I think 20 odd products have been clearly defined as what would constitute Indian or local. Right? I don't know if you saw that. And a case in point is LEDs, where the government said, okay, for an LED to be treated as local, these are the parameters. They've given you 3 formulae for calculating design. I think it's something that we must all read, and I think we need to give our input so that we are all on the same page. For example, they said in the LED driver, first of all, the PCB must be local. They don't allow the bare PCB to be imported. Second, they said on all the components in the driver, except for the price of the PCB, because that's already Indian, at least 20% components must be sourced locally, and then the whole driver will be considered, the driver value will be considered as local. So there is, this is interesting. Obviously a lot of thought has gone in. We can see on both sides of it, but I'm just saying, so policy is not just PLI, but things like this are beginning to happen. They will have different triggers. And it's not just LED. The government will tomorrow start buying air conditioners or electric vehicles, and list of IT items that the government is buying is quite large and impressive, or CCTV cameras. So there could be areas we are not good at today, but maybe public procurement gives us the kind of market bandwidth we need to start doing something. So a little thought around. Let me go around the room on policy. And do you have any sort of suggestions? Sunil, you want to go first?
I think I just want to comment. I think what was mentioned earlier on about EMC at the state level. I think it's very healthy to see the competition among states. for investment. I think someone mentioned China as an example, but definitely living in the US, I saw this already. I think I saw every US state competing very heavily to attract business to its state. So I think by bringing that entrepreneurial spirit to the states on where they participate is a great thing. My only concern is on whether they can afford it. I think I know the state's revenue stream is a little bit on the dry side. So if we promise a stream, if we promise these incentives without an ability to deliver them, we don't want to leave a bad taste in the mouth, like what happened with at least some people thought happened with MSIP. Although for us, at least we are pretty happy. I think the MSIP was a great scheme, and we had no issue getting the money we were owed. But I know there were complaints from many on not getting the MSIP money on time. So again, we just have to be careful. But I think the government policy, I think the government is doing its job. I think on the component side, I agree the payback period should have been considered the ratio is really makes it very difficult for most component companies to qualify. But definitely, I think the government is thinking on the rights, given the tight budget it's under. But I think the rest is really up to us to work as a team across the supply chain, as I said earlier, and we can only count on the government to do so much.
Right. Sajid?
Yeah, probably. I think this is one of the best times I have seen previously today. But see, if you look at today, the PLI or the specs or the EMSC2 is not specifically for the EMS company, right? The EMSC2 is included. So these are either for the mobile phone manufacturing businesses or for the component manufacturing or for the electronic manufacturing clusters. So after the MSIPS program is already out from the scenario, we do not have a policy at a country level for EMS. But what we in the industry we believe is that I'm sure Elsina also is working towards it. We will soon have a policy at a national level for the ESDM sector. But having said that, it is very heartening to see, very, very positive to see that some of the state governments have come forward, putting up their policies for the state, and which is very attractive. Rajuji was mentioning about the state of Tamil Nadu coming up with a policy like that. We also saw something, I don't think the Karnataka policy has become a government order, but we also saw in the newspapers a week back what they are up to. It's more or less in the same line, very attractive. So some of the state governments are coming in. I think policy-wise, this is in a very strong stage, what we are now. As soon as the woes of the component industry and mobile phone manufacturing, all that is kind of addressed, and the package is pretty huge. I mean, there may be concerns who are for working in the industry, but at least that is addressed to some level. Sorry.
Sure. No, go ahead. Sorry, Pankaj, you want to leave? So just for a minute, I'd like your last word before you go.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I am sorry to the panelists. I have an external audit. Actually, it's from the customer for whom we are putting up the new line on the semiconductors. So I'm really sorry. It's a Singapore time, so it's they've just fixed it up. So my opinion on this, what Sunil had rightly said, is that the policy is there. The PLI needs to be amended for the components. The threshold needs to be adjusted, but besides that, I think the policy of the individual states is encouraging. When states are moving in quickly, we can keep asking government for additions and additions, but I think now is the time that we need to move a step forward for them to see that yes, we are committed, and then probably we'll then go back and ask for something more. So as far as the component side, as far as our company is concerned, we are going ahead with the specs, and then we'll see how it goes on in the next 6-8 months, and then go back for any changes in the policy. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody. I'm sorry.
Having you with us, and all the best for your audit.
Thank you. So take care, please. Thank you. Sorry about this. Thank you.
Sorry, Sajid, I interrupted you. Please go ahead.
No issue. So I'm also almost the same line. So basically, what I'm saying is that the policy of the component industry, the mobile phone manufacturing, those are all very encouraging. I think it is coming up in a very, very big way, which of course, it may need some modifications, some corrections here and there. Let it happen. At state level, very encouraging to see. And we are also I think everybody in EMS world is today looking at something at the national level. I'm sure something should happen very soon, and which will further boost this manufacturing in India. So policy-wise, I don't think that we have a big concern today. Things are moving in the direction, and let us hope that it continues the traction that it has gained now.
Wonderful. Bhupi, over to you. I must mention something about Bhupi. The first time I spoke with him, I was in my car. Bhupi, sorry, I'm letting a secret out. And I was introduced to a person who knows both of us very well. And he said, "Oh, you make film capacitors and we import a lot. And you know what?" So I said, "No, we'd be more than happy. I'll send my team over, whatever, the usual." And Bhupi said something, the most encouraging thing I ever heard from a customer was from Bhupi, and I want to put it on public domain. And he said, "Vinod, if you can fulfill my capacitor requirement, I don't want to buy it from anywhere else. I will send a bottle of single malt to your house." So, so I'm working on this very seriously. I'm really motivated. So, Bhupi, that's the kind of encouragement we need from customers like you.
Sure.
But
I thought we were talking about government incentives.
Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
So I think I agree with everybody. The government incentive in the center as well as states are pretty good right now, and definitely we have to perform right now. I will say government is doing its job. We can request government to do some plus minus in the like PLI policies among the amount and the investment and everything. But other than that, everything seems to be good. And I think it is our turn. I'm seeing that it's our turn right now to compete, to make the world class product and design. One point I will say from Sajan, when he said is lot of components are chosen by the OEMs basically. But what we see right now, the how the Taiwan and China industry works, it's a lot of ODM driven if you see. So ODM drivens mean what happens? Let's say Cisco wants to make a router. What Cisco does is they go to China or they go to normally they go to Taiwan. They will go to Pegatron, they will go to Advantech or anybody, and they'll say, "Hey, this router I need. These are my specs." And then the components are chosen by Advantech, Alpha, Acton, not by the Cisco as it is basically. Cisco may choose a processor level and the memory level only at the two level. The register, capacitor, inductor, connector, all are chosen by the ODM basically. So that is the ecosystem we have to make. So all the people, VVDN has now 3,000 engineers, BTech, MTech, and the PhDs, bringing that ecosystem that we will design the product. First we will design the product here, then we have the ability to choose the components: register, capacitor, inductor, connector, memory, flash, processor. We can choose that thing. And once we choose that thing, then whether we choose from the all our local suppliers or it is our wish basically. So I think we have to create that ecosystem here basically. It's not a OEM driven. Lot of things are ODM driven also. OEM normally will choose, I want to use Qualcomm, I want to use MediaTek, only just two or three components basically. 70% of the BOM is chosen by the ODM basically. So we need to create that. When we will, we VVDN as a company today, we are designing almost 100 products every year basically right now. With 3,000 plus engineers, we are doing 100 products every year. We have the capability to choose the component right now. The OEM only forces us only to the processor level, not after that which memory you choose, which flash, which register, which capacitor, and all those things. So that is our capability. That is the system we need to create. The EMS alone is a great thing basically. I mean Dixon has a great success, but EMS plus the design capability, that will take us further basically. And all other things, whether it's a government, whether it's everything sub, then the things will automatically start coming into its place. That's my request to everybody. Along with the EMS opportunity, we need to create the ODM basically, where we design, we choose the component, and then we manufacture. That will create a lot of value creation. That will create that will be the real value creation actually. That will take the electronics manufacturing, electronics engineer to the next level. That's my perception regarding the government. All of you are smarter than me. You guys spoke very well about the government policies. I don't give. I think we need to perform basically. That's what my perception always is.
Excellent, excellent, Bhupi. I couldn't agree more with you. And Raju, this is actually homework for us. My vision, Sunil, before I let you come in, is very simple. With the EMS and the base of the pyramid component makers like ourselves, if we have a continuous dialogue, our vision together should be that after a year from now, we should enable our ODM suppliers, our ODM customers, to make better pitches to the world, because on passives and electromechanicals, on wire wounds, on PCBs, we are able to deliver to them better value than anybody else as a group. I think it's possible. It's definitely possible if we put our heads together, try to look at it from this Maruti model, not one Maruti, but several of them. Bhupi, you made some excellent points there about the whole ODM business. Sunil, last word to you, and then I will hand it over to Raju.
I'm still there.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Go
Yes,
ahead. No, it's go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, you already talked about the policy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I think, add one thing more is I think, yes, I have talked about the policy, but I forgot to mention, I think that the labor law, I know a lot of companies made a promising, a lot of states made a promising start, but I think they ended up rolling back pretty much everything they announced. So I think labor is still a challenge. I have worked all over the world in Asia and in US, and I think our labor laws are some of the most difficult ones compared to other countries. So definitely if government has some action to do still on the labor law side, which I don't think.
It's a work in process. Yeah, you're right. The codes are now being written.
Yeah, and I think on COVID side, we saw definitely a lot of iterations. When during COVID, we were we were almost threatened with being arrested if we started our own factories. So, I think the labor law implementation in this country is still a far cry from what it needs to be.
Sorry, Sriram, yes.
Yeah, maybe I have 2.5 points to, and one is a contra point. See, I very early in life when I was working for Sundaram Fasteners, the visionary like Suresh Krishna always used to tell us, never make a business case on government policy or government incentive. You will always be surprised. And I think that's my simple advice to all of us, including myself. If it comes, bonus. If it doesn't come, make your business case without that part, and you will survive and you will do very well. My second point is, government can just play a very active but non-invasive part in all this is what I found out. The Prime Minister mentioned air conditioning in Atmanirbhar Bharat in the CII speech, and the AC guys went into a tizzy because many of them were bringing in inverter ACs completely assembled, not just the inverter boards, but the whole. They went into a tizzy. I mean, Bhupi is right. I was just had to just sit in my seat, and I was getting calls left, right, and center. And we've been sitting with a proper design for 2 years. Nobody cared. One. The procurement policy, when it came out a couple of days back, even though it was meant for government procurement, a lot of industry got into a tizzy again, kept calling us saying, we want to make it in India. What is your capability? What's your capacity? How much are you loaded? Blah, blah, blah. So just that, is creating opportunities for us. So that is one thing. The second part, the last point I want to make is in terms of R&D expenditure, I think we are abysmal. Our industry is less than 1%, even in electronics, compared to say 4% in Israel, maybe 3% of GDP in China and US. I think unless the government has a policy like they did for CSR, unless they bring in a mandated percentage of your PBT or your operating income as R&D expenditure, it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And we have too many listed companies. We have too many private companies. I think we all like to see nice PBT numbers, but I think government needs. I think it's time. If they really want Atmanirbhar Bharat to succeed, it's time that the government moved in and said X percentage, and then that percentage can keep going up. It doesn't have to start at very high number. A small percentage, keep moving it up every year. I think, and then incentivize that. Your R&D expenditure. That will get us in about 5 to 10 years really where we want to be on Atmanirbhar Bharat and Make in India. Without that, I don't see a chance in hell in getting there.
As always, some very wise advice there, Sriram, for you. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. I think we've had a very interesting morning. We have about 10 minutes over the schedule. Raju, I'm sorry for that, but I just thought that there was so much value to these discussions that I didn't stop when I had to. So over to you, Raju. Thank you, gentlemen. Have a lovely day.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My most sincere thanks to all of you for being here and for sharing all of your insights and experiences, which is I wish I could, squeeze them all in one pot and, bring them together. But there's really a lot to really, summarize. I think it's a very difficult job to summarize it. But I have to thank you also on behalf of the Tamil Nadu government and the host state Tamil Nadu who are for supporting this event. So that is part of the protocol, and thank you. And I believe with experts like you and maybe 50, 60 more, as Rupi said, would be coming, growing. Maybe we'll have a large industry in place. Seems to be very important is that I think there needs to be more to be done in the design and development space. I think that is what is going to also create more opportunity for our own components. Otherwise, we may keep on buying components from outside. So I guess we don't have to look for miracles, but we have to move ahead step by step and possibly increase our value addition 5% or 4% or 6% every year. That is what I can say. Vinod, you were saying something.
Yeah, no, Raju, no, sorry, I totally forgot. But the Tamil Nadu government, which you mentioned, we must thank them for another reason. Actually, it was the Tamil Nadu government that actually brought electronics manufacturing into flavor 15, 20 years ago. Maybe about 15 years ago, with Nokia's and everybody else coming in. And we began to believe in the whole manufacturing space again. So really, we have a lot to thank them for. I can also tell them, as a customer now, as a client, potential client, that they have some catching up to do. We heard from the Madhya Pradesh government the other day a mind-boggling figure of 45% as their grant, capital incentive, if you may call it that, along with the 25% of specs. That's a lot of money, and I think some serious manufacturing can happen in that area. So, of course, they are leading the pack. You've done a very good job of comparing all the state policies, and that could be one of our publications. But yeah, federal competitiveness is definitely here to stay. And thank the Tamil Nadu government again for starting this whole race at one point of time.
Right.
Okay.
So I won't say anything more. Thank you so much, all of you for being here. And do be with us for the next session as well, which is in about half an hour or so. Thank you very much, all of you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Rajuji.
Thank you. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Bye.